so excited to see such a great crowd tonight. Thank you for coming. And before we start, I'm going to invite everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have our wonderful librarian here this evening. Thank you so much for, and I'm going blank. Lori. Lori allows us every other month to utilize this room for our meetings, and this is probably the most beautiful library in my district. I think this is a wonderful library, so thank you, Lori, for that. And do we have any members of elected or people who are serving on boards or commissions in the community? Matt, besides Matt? Oh, that's right, Matt. That's right. Matt Hedges, my chief of staff, is on your Parks and Rec board. That's really exciting. So, and I'm so excited that Mayor Carrie Howell is here this evening. We're doing something different this year with my meetings. What we decided was for those 2 incorporated cities that are in my district, we're going to, with each meeting, I'm going to be partnering with one of your council members. We have 5 meetings a year, and we generally do meetings every 2 months, and then we take a little break in the summertime. So with each meeting, I'm going to be inviting one of your council members, so throughout the year you'll have a chance to hear from each one of them. So for the first 15 minutes of tonight's meeting, I'll give a quick update on the county, and then Mayor Howell will be speaking for 15 minutes and just kind of giving an update on the city and things she feels you would want to be aware of. And then we're both going to just stand up here, and you can ask whichever one of us you have a question, shoot, and we'll just have a conversation. And for those of you, how many of you have been to my meetings before? I'm sorry, have not. Okay. Oh, there's quite a few. And did you receive a postcard invite? Is that why you came? Okay. So for those of you who have not been here before, if you're not receiving my newsletter, my online newsletter, which I send out monthly, we have a sign-up sheet. If you have not signed up, I'm going to pass this around in case anyone wants to sign up for the newsletter. Oh, go ahead and pass it around. And also to let you know that this year we're probably we've been sending out those postcards for a couple years now. We're thinking we're going to reduce the sending of postcards and try to go online now that we're kind of established and people know we're here and when the meetings are. So watch for our notices for our meetings online, and don't necessarily wait for that postcard. This evening I'm going to talk, and I also wanted to quickly mention, when we go through our question and answers this evening, please engage, because that's the most important part of the meeting, so that we can hear from you and have an idea of what your concerns are. If you have concerns about the community or anything, if you have specific concerns that might take a while, know that we're going to be here after the meeting as long as you need us to be here. So you might don't worry if we don't have enough time during the 1-hour meeting. We can definitely be here as long as you need us. This evening I'm going to be talking a little bit about our homelessness in Sacramento County. I'm going to give a quick update on that and a couple of other brief announcements. And I'm excited because at the end of the year, Sacramento County received a homeless update from our staff, and after working so hard in 2017 and putting together 4 initiatives and some other initiatives later that augmented our initiatives, we're having some great success with our homeless outreach and services that we're offering through the county. If you remember, for those of you who may not be aware, the county hired a specialist who came in, and our staff spent about a year and a half just kind of looking at where are we spending our money and what can we do to, what kind of results are we getting and what can we do to get better results. And they came up with 4 initiatives. The initiatives that they came up were redesigning our family emergency response, which was all about housing homeless families that are out there, preserving Mather campus. In 2017, the funding, some of the federal funding changed in the way they were looking at homelessness, and there were some large projects, nonprofits that were going to actually lose federal funding, and Mather campus was one of them, and the Board of Supervisors determined we wanted to preserve the good work they were doing there and continue it. And that was all about residential and non-residential and veterans, homeless veterans, and also about seniors. We have a senior resources over there also. And then full service rehousing, which was temporary scattered shelters. We initially voted for a 75-bed facility in the unincorporated county, and we ended up not being able to find a place where we could put it. You know how a lot of people don't want that kind of thing in their backyard, and so our staff came up with what we call our scattered site model. And what that is basically houses that are subleased, and we can put up to 5 or under 6, 5 or less people in each facility, and we wrap them with services. And we have had wonderful success with the scattered site model. It's kind of, the benefit of it is that we can quickly expand it and contract it as we need to. And we are growing that model as we speak. And then also flexible supportive rehousing, which is long-term homeless resources. So the good news that I wanted to tell you is that in 2018, the board approved that we could set up to 15 scattered site housing sites. In 2018, we have in place 14 scattered shelter sites. One of them is in District 4, not close to Folsom, but over in the unincorporated area. 3 are in 3 outreach navigation facilities. 1 is in District 4, and 7 housing assistance walk-in offices. 1 is in District 4. And what we've also finalized is written agreements with collaborative partnerships between the sheriff and the county, criminal justice system, law enforcement in all the region, alcohol and drug treatment, behavioral services, all kinds of entities are collaboratively and partnering together to work on this problem. In the county, and when I talk about county, I'm talking about, the numbers that I'm talking about include all the unincorporated cities. So an example is most of our scattered home sites are in Sacramento City. I think probably because there's probably the biggest problem there, and that's where the facilities were available. But the county is working in collaboration with the cities who also augment what we're doing with homelessness. So these numbers are throughout the county, which is countywide, and we have exited into either transitional or permanent housing 344 people in 2018, which is really, I think it's really good. And we have also we also have some additional funding opportunities this year. We have No Place Like Home, which is going to be funds that come from, basically what the county has done is we're accessing funds that are coming from the Mental Health Services Act, which is Prop 63. I don't know if you've heard of that, but basically what happened was the legislature passed a law that allowed quite a bit of funding to help us with our mental health issues, because we didn't have enough resources for people who had mental health problems. And the problem that we had was we had lots of navigators to help us navigate people and move to know where they need to go, but we didn't have places to send them. And so we had services, but we didn't have a place to send them. And so what No Place Like Home funding does is it provides funding from the Mental Health Services Act that we can pull down from those bonds, and we can partner that with affordable housing developers who maybe want to come in. They can take their project that they want to, maybe they're rehabbing a old motel and turning it into an affordable housing project. They can apply 35 to 45% of that project to mental health, and they can pull on those Mental Health Services Act funding and also use those funds to pay back the bond that they pull down. And what that does is that gives them instant equity in 30 or 40% of their project, and it allows them to pencil out what they couldn't pencil out before, because when they took away housing and redevelopment funds, a lot of these affordable housing opportunities couldn't happen because developers couldn't afford to do it. So we have additional opportunities that and a couple of other funding opportunities that are coming down at the county. In 2017, the homeless count was around 2,600, and in 2018, it was around 3,600, or a little over that, I think. And now we're getting ready to do the homeless count again this month, and in the next couple months we'll know. We know that the trend is upward right now, but we don't really, and I'm hearing from people that they kind of feel it's probably going to be up again. So the question of the day is, are we making any progress on the problem, or is the problem growing faster than we're making progress? So we'll be looking at that as we move forward. I also wanted to let you know, for those of you that were here last time, that was a couple months ago, we were right in the middle of the conversation around the Inspector General and the Sheriff issue. The board agreed upon some contract point, some clarifications in the Inspector General's contract, and right now we are going to be going out for an RFP on that, and the sheriff is working with the county and with the Sheriff's Association to determine how that individual can access the Sheriff's Department. So we're hoping to replace the Inspector General as soon as possible, and we'll be going out for an RFP on that as soon as possible. And I wanted to let you know that the Veterans Advisory Commission is established. That was something that we were really excited to bring on board soon after I got elected, and the board was amenable to having a Veteran Advisory Commission. We have 5 appointees. Our appointee from District 4, I believe, is from Folsom. And I forget his name, but he's very highly qualified, and he was also elected as the chairman of the board the first year. So he's a founding member and chairman of the board, and he's a veteran from Folsom. So that's exciting. They're going to be having their first meeting. They had their first meeting on the 17th, and they'll be meeting 6 times a year. And if you're a veteran and you have, important issues that you want to make that advisory council aware of, that's a good place for you to go to elevate your voice to direct contact with advice to the Board of Supervisors on how we can best represent veterans in the region. I also wanted to let you know it's that time of year again. When I first got elected, my office immediately started working hard to try to make sure that we were connecting with constituents. One of my campaign promises was that I would never forget who I work for. And so how I can do that is make sure I'm listening and I understand what your needs are and what your concerns are. And so initially we did some surveys, and it was interesting because when I first started the survey, the top concerns were public safety, roads, and homeless. This year we have started our surveys. How many of you have taken the survey? The survey's out. You can go online and take that survey. Is it still going, Matt? Okay. But so far, initial indications are that the top concern is homelessness. So interesting enough, our survey is beginning to give us an idea of trends. So in this survey, we're asking a lot of the same questions that we asked last year. We're also asking some new questions, some questions about some possible propositions that might be coming on the ballot in 2020, and other new questions. So I want to invite you, if you're willing, to share how you feel. It also gives you an opportunity to type in, anything you want to say to me that you want me to be aware of, because I work for you. So that is really exciting, and we'll be probably coming out with the results on that survey in our March meeting. And I am this evening very, very excited to have Mayor Carrie Howell, who is here to speak on, represent the City Council in Folsom and tell you all about what's going on in Folsom.
I apologize. It looks like I'm talking funny. I spent 2 hours at the dentist and this whole side of my face is still numb. So I could drool a little. I don't know what might happen. So I gave the state of the city, an abbreviated version at the council meeting. Today?
That was amazing, by the way.
Oh, Sue and Matt, I think, were both at the one that was given at the chamber luncheon, so that was a little bit longer. But basically we talked about all of the long list of accolades that the city got again last year. We keep getting named one of the best places to live and work, raise a family, safest places. We actually have some of the best credit scores, which I think is a very odd statistic, and some of the lowest credit card debt ratios in the country. So that's all good. The median home price is up to $532,000, which is about a 10% increase from last year. I know there's some information in the paper today in the D about Sac County as a whole, where it looks like sales are slumping. That doesn't seem to be the case here. We've been somewhat of an anomaly even during the economic downturn. We never got hit as badly as anybody else. The unemployment rate in Folsom is 2.6, which is the lowest in the region. We just recently passed a total of 36,000 jobs in the city, so that's more than half as many jobs as we have people, because remember that our 78,000 population also includes the permanent guests of the state of California. So that was about 6,500 prisoners that don't qualify as employed or unemployed, I don't believe. Economic development is up. We are still getting a lot of companies that are interested in moving here for all of the reasons you would expect they would. Basically the quality of life, the 55 miles of trails, all the parks, all of the other amenities, and the lifestyle that we have. The major crimes are down 8%. The minor crimes are down by 5% from last year. We are working with the county on the homeless issue. We're working with the county and a number of local nonprofits and faith-based organizations here in Folsom, as well as, hi Felicia, as well as Heart of Folsom, which provides assistance in part through the Navigator program that the county basically set up a few years ago. And what that program is part of the count that Sue was referring to. They identify the people that are living in a given area. In one instance, it's to get an overall count of the people in the region, but the Navigator knows pretty much who all of the homeless people are in Folsom. They know who wants help, who doesn't want help, and the way that program works with the Navigator is you have to agree to want to get help from some of the services that they can connect you to. In Folsom, for a 12-week period, the faith-based organizations, various churches, I believe it changes week to week. So those folks get to sleep in a warm building, they get to take a shower, they get a hot meal, but in exchange for that, they have to meet with the Navigator and they have to meet with the people that can get them social services like an ID card, a social security card, whatever Medi-Cal, Medicare benefits they might be entitled to, access to mental health, should they want that, access to addiction programs, depending upon whatever the situation is. I've met with some of the people that provide that service, and they do a super, super good job at pairing the homeless people with volunteers within that organization that they think the mentor will be able to get to the psyche of the homeless person and relate to them on a one-on-one basis. And interestingly, there was another article in the Bee today that talked about countywide where the successes have been, because it was also about all of the pop-up tent cities that the city of Sacramento is talking about putting in their various districts. But they said that they've had a much higher success rate where they get people involved in groups as opposed to on their own, because then they have, it's a peer-to-peer relationship, and they feel like they have somebody that cares about them and that they have some relationship with, and they have more success in getting out of that cycle than they do if they just remain on their own. So I thought that was a very interesting statistic. We are about to be at full employment in the police department. Excuse me, we just hired 3 new officers from other agencies, and I believe we have 4 folks graduating from the academy this month, and so they will be on board with the city of Folsom, at least on their training programs, about the middle of February. We opened Station 39, for those of you that don't know, in Empire Ranch later this summer. So that station's up and running. Station 38 is going to be getting a major overhaul. That's the station that's on Blue Ravine and Oak Avenue. It's the one that looks like a house that's on the corner there. That's actually my neighborhood. I believe they're going to be putting a 2nd floor on there and just fixing what are not great sleeping arrangements for the firefighters now that we've got more women on the fire department staff. But things are looking up. We're moving forward with a number of programs to decrease traffic congestion in various areas of town. We're going to be updating the lights and the ability to time the lights along East Bidwell. We're making changes at the intersection of Clarksville and East Bidwell. If you're coming basically toward El Dorado Hills on Clarksville, the major turning movement is a left turn. Right now there's only 1 left turn lane. There's 2 lanes that go straight, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone drive directly across East Bidwell. You know, unless they were going to college, I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that. So that traffic, the left turn lane, gets super backed up, like way past the fire station. So we're adding a left turn lane there, and the right turn remains. We're going to adjust the intersection at Iron Point in East Bidwell, right close to the freeway. That U-turn that is still allowed, if you go to In-N-Out or Starbucks and you want to come back onto East Bidwell, you can cut across 4 lanes of traffic, get in the left turn lane, make a U-turn, cut across 4 more lanes of traffic, and get on the freeway. Well, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. Right. And that's been a huge pet peeve of mine. I voted against the In-N-Out project for that very reason. So the traffic engineer a month or so said, well, maybe we won't have to eliminate it. I said, oh no, we're eliminating it. So that should make the right turn from the people coming from Iron Point toward El Dorado Hills that want to get on the freeway. That should make less congestion for those folks. We're working closely with RT. All of the signals along Folsom Boulevard that were installed when light rail first came to Folsom 10 years ago, it's basically antiquated equipment at this point, so we have very little ability to control the lights with respect to the train movement. So sometimes you're sitting there, the train's going, and the train's going along Folsom Boulevard, why can you not go straight? It's understandable you wouldn't be able to turn right or left if you wanted to cross the tracks, but the cars should be able to go straight. RT is going to move up that project to replace all of those signals along Folsom Boulevard, so that will eliminate the traffic that happens typically in the morning and in the afternoon. We've already extended the operating hours, so light rail now runs till 11 o'clock most nights. I think it might even be midnight on the weekends, I'm not sure. But the time intervals right now are 30 minutes. They're going to be adding, it's not full double tracking, they're going to be adding sidings at the stations so that they can increase the frequency to 15-minute intervals instead of 30. That'll make it easier for people to go downtown, have dinner, come back, and people that live downtown come up here, go to Sutter Street, have dinner, and get back home. And it's also good for employees that, say, work at the factory stores. We're adding, since we've recently annexed into RT, there will be micro transit service. It's basically going to be Uber for RT. So you can put an app on your phone, and a little, small, like a 12-passenger van, minibus, whatever you want to call it, can pick you up at the station and take you, say, if you work at the college or if you work at Intel. And a lot of the Intel employees have odd work hours, so they get out of work after, after the regular bus routes are running. And, up until recently, light rail stopped, the last train left Folsom at 6:30, so if you didn't get out of work at Intel till 7, light rail really wasn't an option. So now that that has all changed, we're hoping it will improve the transit access for people that work in other parts of town, and you'll have the opportunity to take that microbus. There were questions a while ago about why would we want to annex into RT, because RT for so long was such a mess. RT has really, really cleaned up their act. They've dramatically improved the security along their systems. They're buying new equipment. They have a better handle on their cost ratios. So we think that's going to be a good thing. And I'm actually sitting on the RT board now. So we're getting a fair amount of attention from them, and they're very, very happy about the annexation, as are all of the former city employees that are now RT employees. It was a good deal for our employees to go there, and it also limits the city's liability with regard to both labor and long-term retirement costs. So it's a good deal for everyone. Probably a better deal for us than RT, but my major concern is us. So what else is going on? There's always, tons of activities. The football team, Folsom High football team, won the state championship again. In fact, their parade, if anybody's going home by Sutter Street, you're not going to be happy because that parade's going down Sutter Street at 7 o'clock. So I would stay away from there for a while unless you want to go to the parade. The Vista girls won their Division III, I believe, state championship in cross country. The schools continue to be extremely well ranked, not only statewide but nationally, both academically and for the sports and music programs. So all is really good in the bubble. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
What else do you have planned for that intersection at East Bidwell and Iron Point?
There's going to be, as I said, we're enhancing the right turn movement.
Yeah.
I think eliminating that U-turn is going to solve a lot of problems.
But if you're eliminating it, what are you going to do?
Okay, so if you're leaving Starbucks, you turn to the right, or if you're leaving in and out, you turn to the left. You go past the, remember there's a whole bunch of new roadways on the other side of the freeway now. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get on the freeway going in either direction, you go under the freeway along Old Placerville Road, turn right when you get to the other side of the freeway, and then you can go wherever you want on Highway 50.
But Iron Point backs up quite a bit. When you're going towards East Bidwell, they want to turn right onto the freeway. Why not put in 2 right turn lanes there instead of just 1?
Right now, there's not sufficient room, so we're going to do these other changes first and see how that works out. But right now, there is not sufficient room to add another lane there because there's still a fair amount of traffic that goes up Iron Point as well. So we'll look at that, but for the moment, the only way to add that turn lane would be to purchase property from the people that own the center where FATS is. Yes?
One of the concerns that I have is it relates to traffic, but it's people running red lights and
I talk about it at every single council meeting.
It's kind of like a lot of folks here consider red lights or stop signs recommendations rather than the law. And I'm very concerned. It seems to me that the fatalities are increasing in Folsom as it relates to
We did have a fatality with a pedestrian, I think it was a week ago. I don't know the details from the police department, but what I do know is it happened at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was still very dark.
Right.
My understanding was that the driver that unfortunately hit that young woman, she was a checker or a bagger or something, or a service clerk at Rayleigh's, at New Rayleigh's. I understand that she was crossing near Big Valley.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why Big Valley, if I were crossing that road, and I'm assuming she was crossing at the light. That wouldn't be the best place for a pedestrian to cross. There's some sight distance issues there. Her mom actually came to the council meeting and one of her friends spoke, and talked about, well, we need to decrease the speed limit. That's a very long, complicated process, and we can't do that. It's based on the 85th percentile.
I'm just looking at more
No,
enforcement.
we are, and we are doing that. And the fact that we're adding, in the course of the next month and a half, a total of like 7 new officers, that is gonna help, and I talk about it at every single council meeting. But unfortunately, that young woman was wearing all black. Based on her age, I'm gonna guess that time in the morning, maybe earbuds were involved. That's just typical. Most 27-year-olds have earbuds in. And I talked about it last night. You know, if you're gonna be out walking at night, do not be walking around in all black. I went to a Pampered Chef party at a girlfriend's house a couple of weeks ago. She lives on Percifer. I parked a half a block away, and as I was walking, because there's no sidewalks there, I'm walking toward her house, and I had black jeans on and a black leather jacket. I took my jacket off, just in case, you know, somebody was driving down the street and couldn't see me. So I'm begging people to stop going out, even on the sidewalk. You can't be seen. If you trip and fall, no one's going to see you. So we're working on that, and I agree with you. And the fatal accident, the accident that was reported as fatal along East Natoma, right near the Johnny Cash Bridge pedestrian overcrossing,
Right.
there was nothing untoward going on. It was 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. There was, and I don't know the age of the person, it was someone driving a Mazda. I only know it was a woman. And she was going around that curve going toward the Johnny Cash Bridge. She lost control of the car, overcorrected, and drove right head-on into an SUV. The good news was, and I saw this on the news the other night, the 2 people that saw the accident, one of them was an off-duty Elk Grove police officer, the other was off-duty sheriff's department. They performed CPR until the fire department got there, and that woman is in bad shape, but she's alive. But you are right, there's way too many accidents, people are driving way too fast. I said last night, if the light turns yellow, that means put on your brake. It doesn't mean speed up, it means caution.
It's blowing through the red lights that's really bothering me.
I know, and I've done this, I haven't done it lately, but for a time I was keeping a pad of paper in my car and actually writing down license plate numbers. And I kept warning people at the city council meeting, don't do it, because if I'm behind you, I'm going to put your license plate on TV. I tell everybody to drive like their father or mother is behind them.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate, but I think if we collectively always obey the speed limit, always stop at the stop sign, maybe the person behind you that's tailgating you probably will notice what you're doing and say, gee, maybe that's not such a bad idea. And the other thing that I say a lot, you know, you don't, the blinker in your car, that signal director, it comes with the car, right? You already paid for it, so you might as well use it.
There was, what was there one over
Yes,
here?
you had a question.
I was just curious if there was any update on when the Iron Point Road connection to El Dorado Hills might be complete.
That question I don't know, but if you want to either call me or send me an email, I will find that out from the Public Works Department for you tomorrow. Yes. I love your jacket, by the way.
Oh, thank you. About a year ago, they were saying that the interchange at Empire Ranch to Highway 50 was going to take about 5 years, so now it would be maybe 4 years.
We were concerned about that with the whole Prop 6 thing about whether or not SB 1 was going to get
Not soon
overturned.
enough.
Well, that didn't happen. The SB 1 funding is still there. We already have access to a pot of money through the Sacramento Transportation Authority, which is a regional agency that basically writes the checks to the different jurisdictions. So we have our finger in that pot. There's additional money that's coming from the development south of the freeway, and I will be meeting with the city manager and our public works folks in the next couple of days to determine how much money we want to beg for when we go to Washington. And so because there's actually 2 of them, Empire Ranch Road and Oak Avenue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Oak Avenue is supposed to be just an overcrossing, and that is just
No,
not.
it's going to be an interchange.
Oh, great, great.
And just so you know, I'm an engineer and a complete geek in my real life, and my degree's in civil and transportation. So all the transportation stuff is very, very important to me.
Well, so much development is happening off of Iron Point, and it's putting so much traffic there, you just have to have some relief.
The only development that's going on over there right now is a new senior care facility, and most of those folks do not have cars.
There's a lot of houses behind Safeway at, what is it?
I did know the total
Prairie
number on
City.
that, and I don't know the count off the
There's
top
a
of my
whole
head.
bunch of housing going in there.
Yeah, across
There are
from
big
Safeway.
apartments across, 800 apartments gonna go in by Bel Air.
Broadstone.
Broadstone, Bel Air. And then all kinds of housing.
Well,
in addition to that.
we are working on those improvements to get those other interchanges done to get people
That would be
off of
wonderful.
those. And I keep reminding people, you don't have to get on the freeway at East Bidwell. Iron Point goes there too. In fact, somebody asked me about that interchange, and I said, you know what? I have to be honest with you. I never get on the freeway there. And I live off Willow Creek and Blue Ravine. I go down Blue Ravine and go out Prairie City to get, if I'm going to the freeway. And I actually have to go down White Rock quite a bit, and that's the way I always go.
Off Prairie City.
Yeah.
Those two interchanges will make a
Yep,
huge
we are
difference.
working on it.
I think we had some questions in the back, and then you.
Okay.
And then this woman over here.
Sue gets to pick.
Well, I'm trying to move it along because I know we're gonna run out of time. Keep the questions coming, and if they're all for Carrie, that's great. She's here to answer your questions. So,
I had a question, I don't know if you're going to be covering this, but about the state's organic waste diversion from landfills.
I'm going to save that one for Sue.
yeah, we are working right now at the Solid Waste Authority to identify what are our options regarding those facilities that are going to be processing the organics, and how are we going to educate the public on, the new organic, how are we gonna work it? Are we gonna put the organics in with the yard waste and just pick it up more frequently, or are we gonna separate them? So those are conversations that are happening behind the scenes, and our Solid Waste Authority and county and all the jurisdictions are also having conversation around a regional, maybe a multi-county, option of working together to pay for that, whatever that facility looks like. It kind of looks like we might drive organics out for a while, because the big challenge we have is air quality and our requirements with the
And I
air
think the
quality
nearest
management
location right now is Reno.
We're driving now, so we can, we definitely know we might have to do that for a while until we figure out how we're gonna pay. Also, the
Because you got to
swap
build a
board,
plant to process it.
yeah, the swap board also voted when we were talking about our budget this year. We voted to hold some money aside in case we needed some reserve set aside to pull down bond money to build a facility. But at the end of the day, we're gonna try and figure out how we can maybe work with other counties to reduce our overhead costs to manage that. And the big challenge at the end of the day is air quality. The SB 375 and all the regulations that are ramping up with air quality right now are impacting a lot of the boards. And that's right in there.
Yeah.
We'll be hearing more about that soon, because I think we have to comply with that in the next couple years. So it's right, we're right on top of it.
Who was your next election?
2020, yeah.
No.
I promised this woman here, and then someone over here had a question, and then Jim.
Okay.
Well, my question was regarding HART, that's
Yep.
here in Folsom. So my understanding is, I would like to know who's actually supervising them. Because our particular neighborhood, they have two of their homeless shelters directly on the street. One is within feet of a daycare center, the other one is actually in a school setting. The cops have been up to Lakeside Church, my understanding is twice. And when I personally spoke to the person who runs the program, asking them how they do their vetting, there was none. And then there was also the question of what they do when somebody misbehaves. And he was telling me an instance where somebody showed up on their bike,
He who?
Howard, showed up on a bike. And I said, well, then what happened? And he said, well, he was asked to leave and he left on his bike. Well, where do you think that guy's gonna go? He's gonna go into the neighborhood that he's in. So who actually is supervising? Because we've called the city, we've talked to Hart, we've asked the churches, there's nothing. Do we have to wait for a newspaper headline before something actually takes place?
I'm on the
They are
board with
too-
Hart if you'd like me to.
I would love for you to answer that
I can
question.
also respond a little bit to
Well,
that.
I wasn't quite finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm just talking about my particular neighborhood. I don't know
Okay.
about all the other ones. On our particular neighborhood, they are way too close to schools, children, and they need to find another location. I even personally,
They're you know they're
I
moving from,
asked that.
there-
I
there's
even
not,
offered to find them a new location,
There's not-
and we went in, went out the other.
there's not 2 locations
There's
at a
Muslim, there's
time.
Muslim
Okay.
community, and
There's,
there's
they're
Lakeside.
being housed at 1 location in a week. Am I correct?
Well,
But I
Lakeside
can
has
explain-
2.
I can-
Lakeside has 2. Rolling
Okay.
Hill, Oak Hills has, I
They,
think
it
that's in the
moves,
church has 2.
you're Crystal, right?
And Muslim Center has 1, yes.
Each of the, I can help answer that because I was part of when we started Hart in Citrus Heights, and I'm well acquainted. I've volunteered at
But
Arts.
I think this young lady knows
I
that
know,
there's
she's
only
on the
one
board,
church
and I'm
at
going
a
to give
time.
her a chance. But what I wanted to respond to was that each of the Hart organizations is their own nonprofit. And they are working in partnership with county organizations that are working under county funding, Sacramento Steps Forward. Did you want to comment?
Yes,
On that?
because I did not speak with you, and I'm the director of the shelter.
Okay.
He is on the board, but he is not the director of the shelter. I am. My name is Judy Alexander, and that is my role on the board. The shelter is 12 weeks. It does go from church to church. Some weeks have volunteered to do 2 weeks to get the 12-week cycle. Hart's goal is to offer a safe place for people, to encourage them to get off of the street. If people think that the homeless are not in their neighborhood already, they are incorrect. I would much rather have them at my shelter than behind your house or on a trail in your neighborhood.
But they were brought to our neighborhood.
So here-
That's the
yeah,
problem.
I can
And here's
explain
the
that.
thing. Wait,
Can
let
I
me
just-
finish. Here's the thing. Our particular neighborhood is Willow Creek South, and we have, if you add up all of your weeks, half of them are in our neighborhood. Muslim community houses them right in their school.
There's
Lakeside
Crystal, they
is
show up
off.
at 6 o'clock at night, and they're gone at
Alright,
6 in the
yeah,
morning.
that's
But
what I
the thing
wanted
is,
to
nobody's
explain.
supervising them.
Yes, they are.
Okay, let me just explain, let me just have the
And-
floor
and
just
I-
for
and
a
I
moment,
apo- And I
please.
apologize.
Yeah.
I have a birthday party I'm supposed to be at,
Oh.
so I need to leave.
Okay.
But if anybody has any other questions for me related to the city, my phone number is 916-849-6420. It's on the city's website. It's also in the phone book. So if I'm home, I will answer my home phone. It's under my name in the phone book. My email's on the city's website, or you can call anybody at City Hall, get the phone numbers. Call me, send me an email. Any questions you have, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you all.
um,
Talk to you soon.
thank you. What I wanted to explain is how the Hart works. Hart is
I'm concerned about my
okay.
neighborhood.
Hart is a nomadic type business model, and what happens is they identify churches who will help with temporary winter shelter for an 8 or 10 week period during the winter time, and different churches volunteer 1 or 2 weeks. And what happens is there will be one specific church that volunteers to be the intake. And at the intake, they process them. They fill out forms on who are they. They make sure they don't have any weapons, that they're not drunk. They make sure that
Background checks?
there
When I
is,
asked, there was no background checks.
There is always police supervision. They're very familiar with the names of the people that we
Background
have.
checks. Is there background checks, Judy?
Those are, in a manner of speaking, they would not qualify as a legal background check that
That's
you're
my
probably
point.
speaking of. No, we do the best that we can, and we have had wonderful cooperation from the police
But
department.
the police
And the
have been
one
at
thing,
Lakeside Church twice that I was told.
and the one thing that the intake does also is, so at the intake, they are processed. They're not allowed to take their belongings So they store their belongings at the intake, and then they get on a bus and they bus them to whatever church they're staying that night. Church folks volunteer. They volunteer for shifts, and some bring food. Some have dinner with them. Some help and stay all night to watch over them all night. In the morning, there's a morning shift that comes in and makes bag breakfast, so that they give them a bag breakfast on their way out. There's also a morning shift that works with them to clean up the bathrooms and clean up and make sure they left it the way they found it. And they get back on the bus that shows up at 6 o'clock in the morning or so, and they take them back to the intake site. And from there, they are dispersed back to wherever they were. So they are moved, and this year the county has actually initiated some additional education around cleanliness and making sure that we're cleaning with the proper chemicals and that we're doing everything we can to prevent any kind of diseases. So yes.
I just wanted to remind everybody that these are people, citizens of Folsom. They have every right that we have. If they are walking on a sidewalk and not disturbing, not doing criminal behavior, they have every right to do that. I would like to move them forward so that they are more constructive citizens, and I regret that there was an incident in your, excuse me, I'm speaking.
Don't we have the right to be safe and have our children
Yes.
protected? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You're too close. Just relocate.
They are
That's all we're
our
asking.
citizens. They are
So,
allowed.
Can we please try to take the emotion out of it and just let's talk with respect to each other and make sure that, we're communicating, because when it gets emotional, then we're not communicating. I think at the end of the day, the business model with Heart has been highly successful. It sounds like you have some concerns, and it's important that your concerns are heard. So you should communicate with Heart and also communicate with my office if you want, to make sure we can have that conversation. We've had other people who've communicated with our office, and we've done some follow-up work. Have you contacted my office?
I've contacted you personally. I've contacted the city. I contacted Haverty, who said he was going to pass along our concerns.
He did.
Yes.
He was very faithful to do that.
Where did we go?
We were offered to meet. We offered to meet with you and your community anytime, any place reasonable, and we didn't get a response.
So why don't we follow?
We give you our concerns. You guys are still there. The cops
Okay.
are still coming to Lakeside. Our children, you're still close to
I'm
our
going to make a
children.
suggestion that we
Move it
this
away.
after the meeting, because we're taking
Yeah,
up a lot
too
of
much
time, and
time.
others probably have questions, but I don't want to belittle your question. I want to
No.
make sure we work through this. So let's afterwards make sure we're connected so that we can follow up and make sure you're satisfied.
And we will,
Figure out how to help you.
we will
figure
be
it
glad
out.
to be part of the conversation.
Yes, I know, and we will too. So, does anyone else have any questions? Yes.
So I just graduated from Folsom Lake College, and one of the problems I noticed during that time attending was the lack of public transportation available. Specifically, the Folsom bus line only comes once an hour. And I realize there are other things, and I know SACRT is coming in with their stuff, but are there any plans to make sure public transportation is immediately available besides stuff like SACRT, Uber, and the library?
One of the things that, I think probably one of the reasons Folsom rationalized that it was a great idea to come on board with RT is their microtransit. They started this microtransit in other areas of the county, and basically in 2 words, it's Uber bus. And so with the microtransit, you can actually call and they'll pick you up at your location and take you within that geographic range that they are working. And that service is coming to Folsom. To my knowledge, that service is coming to Folsom. And so that's, help is on the way. And actually what we've had to do is think out of the box when it comes to these bus routes, because what happened was there weren't a lot of people using the routes, and RT was paying for a full-time bus driver and a full-time bus to do a route all day, and one person was on the bus. It was ridiculous. And when they started thinking outside the box and watching what Uber and some of these Lyft and other people are doing, they said, I wonder if this would work, you know, for public transportation. And they started a pilot in Citrus Heights. It went over so well. The Sacramento Transportation Authority Board last year allocated an extra 12+ million to expand it, and we're expanding it as quickly as we can, and it's going really well. So I think I would go look for the phone app Microtransit, and I would go online and Google Microtransit or RT Regional Transit and just look for Microtransit. Yeah.
I just would like to add a little bit of hope. I'm
Yeah.
with the 50 Corridor Transportation Management Association.
Oh.
I'm the new Rebecca, if you knew Rebecca
Oh,
Garrison
yeah.
from
Thank
before.
you for coming.
Yeah, and I wanted to be here just to meet you and
Awesome.
if I had a chance, to let people know about opportunities that are coming for the city of Folsom and Rancho Cordova is a bike share program. And also, we hope, other opportunities for more microtransit ideas. And we're working right now with the SACOG, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, to get an RFP out that we're going to do some pilot projects, one hopefully here in Folsom and one in Rancho Cordova. And we're hoping to set something off by April-May timeframe, in time for Maya's Bike Month. And we'll do safety classes and...
What does the
hopefully
pilot look like? Like a bike share?
We're definitely looking at bike share, and also we hope some microtransit ideas. So maybe some microtransit that goes all the way up and down Iron Point, in addition to what RT has. And maybe some things in the old historic Folsom area also, because parking is such an issue there. Offering people some rides into that area and parking at a light rail station, or even riding light rail and then having a microtransit option into historic Folsom. We're hopeful that
That's a
this will
good
be really
idea.
a great pilot.
Yeah, we were in Folsom one night, and my husband said, I wouldn't even come to an event. If it was this crowded every night, I wouldn't even want to come, because it's so far away that you have to park, you know, so that's really great. Yes?
I was wondering, we don't think about it right now, but fires are more and more prevalent in California. Is the county doing any planning, doing any lessons learned from the Camp Fire and other areas of what would happen if we had a catastrophic fire in the county or areas, more rural areas, or neighborhoods, which happened in Santa Rosa? Any planning on that, or lessons learned that we're working on from your perspective?
Well, we're working closely with the utility companies on, you know, making sure that in those areas where there's power lines with trees, that the utility companies are working on those. We are along the American River Parkway constantly. We have done this over time, so this isn't something new, but each year we work to cut away brush and trim bushes and trim areas. It's a fire safety thing that we do along the American River Parkway and up through Dry Creek. I've also had a conversation with your fire chief, and I said to him, you know, do you think, because I got a couple calls from people saying they were worried about the trees in their backyard, that there would be a fire because it seemed like they were dead or whatever. If the trees are in public spaces, we are definitely cognizant of that, and we're trying to maintain those areas. If they're on private property, we can't just go in and cut down other people's trees on private property. It's an expensive endeavor. So property owners have to think about that also. And the county is always looking at emergency response management and that kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, there are some areas that could be subject to a fire, just by virtue of maybe the amount of overgrowth and the you know, how close the homes are together or whatever. It's not that way in all of the county, but there are some areas like that, and the fire department is definitely cognizant of it, and they know where they are, and they are mindful of it and working on it. Who else had a question? Yes.
Kind of with transportation. I noticed in my neighborhood the school buses go through. These big, huge buses, and there's 3 kids on there. It's like, seems like you're paying the driver and the gas, and could they have littler buses?
I am not sure. The school districts operate as a separate district, and so that would be a good question for those folks that are serving on the school board.
Okay.
I can tell you that those buses cost a lot of money, so replacing them for a smaller bus could be more expensive than just driving the existing bus. But that I'm not sure about.
But I guess we're lucky to have buses. My daughter's in Los Gatos, and she says, "You have buses?"
Yeah, a lot of the school districts don't have buses.
Well,
I'm surprised you have buses.
Also in the neighborhood, it's the soccer moms that are going through the lights, or not even the lights, the stop signs in my neighborhood. It's like, get your butt out of bed 15 minutes early.
Taxi drivers, I remember those days. Yes.
I did have an unrelated question. I apologize for speaking too often before. The mental health dollars that are coming into the county, I'm concerned that the east end of the county here, Folsom in particular, is not, we need more help. We need those walk-in offices, and we need those supported housing. I have 10 gentlemen homeless working, or on vets with disabilities or SSI, and there's no housing in Folsom for them under these types of programs that would be helpful to share some of those funds. So I'd just like to encourage us to keep looking for opportunities.
Give me your card before you go, and we'll follow up and find out, because the staff are constantly working with our nonprofits that that we're working with to find more of those housing opportunities, and so we're growing that as quickly as we can. But we can follow up and see if there's any way we can just make sure they're mindful of what you guys are needing. And I need to come to one of your heart meetings. I haven't been to your heart yet.
I'll make sure you get the invite.
They're starting one in Del Paso, which I've been to, Del Paso Heights, but I haven't been to yours, and I know you guys are doing a lot, so that's great. Any other questions? Two more questions, and then we're done. Felicia, and then you. And then
going back to the question about the fire, how about, can we look into some kind of ordinance to ban fireworks in the residential area? Because every 4th of July, I sit on Queens and windows because of neighbors having the firecrackers, the rockets, and with the drought, I just don't want any of the, actually, we did have a couple of homes in our neighborhood caught fire, even though not from the fireworks. But the thing is, when we're so close to one another, we don't want your neighbor's house or tree to catch fire and it spread into the neighborhood. And I don't think it makes sense to be having fireworks on the streets. Your neighborhoods, go to the park or go to some open space.
So, I wonder if you were, when I lived around the corner from you, were you living there when when there was a house that started on fire right across the street from your house in American River Canyon North?
Yes.
Did you live there also?
I watched it.
Oh my goodness, that was an exciting night.
The wrong side. It was burning this side and spraying. They couldn't find the thing to put the hose on. It was horrible.
I don't even know if that was fireworks. I think that was just faulty wiring, but I'll never forget that. And I don't know why I thought of that when you were talking, probably because I'm remembering it right across from your house. Fireworks. The county, catching, the biggest problem we have with fireworks is illegal fireworks. There's a lot of people that can access these illegal rockets and things that fly up and make big noises and explode. And the county and the sheriff and, we're all trying to enforce. We have laws that enforce how people use fireworks and in safe ways to use fireworks. The problem is enforcing it, because by the time someone reports, oh, they lit off a rocket, the sheriff runs out there and the rocket's gone and they're gone and no one's around. So they have a phone app called Nail 'em, And you can actually download that app and at least report it so we know there's activity. And what they do with that phone app is that they find hotspots. So if there's a lot of and Matt, you can correct me if I missed something, there's a lot of times when maybe someone who's distributing those illegal fireworks, they're doing it in a certain area, so there's going to be a lot of more people in that area that are doing that, and so it kind of gives them an idea of where that activity is to give them a better idea of where they might focus their attention. At the end of the day, there are a lot of people who really love the traditional fireworks display. It's a symbol of American apple pie and fireworks and hamburgers and hot dogs. I mean, and at the end of the day, the problem is the people that are not using them the way they're supposed to, or not using the right ones, and it's hard to enforce. But the sheriff has focused on that, and we're working really hard to try to enforce the fireworks. That's a very political issue. We've done surveys. Matt, I think the majority wanted fireworks. They didn't want illegal fireworks. I can't remember the numbers though.
A large majority.
Large majority of the people seem to like the fireworks. So I think the answer is trying to enforce those that don't do the right thing, and that's what the sheriff has been focusing on. And yeah.
Oh, and this is also a perfect opportunity to plug that we brought a bunch of these home inventory guides for you. So if you're worried about a fire, it's a really convenient way to mark all the belongings in your house for insurance purposes. Brought a bunch of copies here from the state insurance commissioner. So pick one up and grab it here.
And I have one more gentleman, and that's the last question.
Thank you. Frank Martinez, I wrote to you about the issue with the sheriff and the inspector general, and I'd like to know your sense of the accountability of the sheriff. If he is elected and the Board of Supervisors is elected, who provides oversight to the sheriff, and who is he accountable to in the event that something is discovered not appropriate or non-compliant when the inspector general does not have that authority in the current model?
So the same person or people that is oversight for me, an elected Board of Supervisors, is over the sheriff, the people. The sheriff, you elect him, he answers to the people. And that's one of the, in my opinion, that is one of the beautiful things about this, is that it's not it's not like a city where the police chief is appointed, you know, and someone who is in politics is appointing them. It's someone who answers to the majority of the people. So I also want to point out that the Inspector General, their job is to, and the sheriff wanted the Inspector General, their job is to help the sheriff's deputies and the sheriff and the whole department be better. And so they're fresh eyes, they're looking from an experienced perspective at situational analysis, and they're looking at it and saying, what do we need more training in a certain area? What could we have done different? Is there some systems that we can put in place that would better support the sheriff so we can keep our deputies safe, or make sure that, you know, they're responding properly or whatever. Their job is not to determine whether or not their job is not to manage the sheriff's budget. My job is not to manage the sheriff's budget. My job as a county supervisor is to appropriate funds for the sheriff's budget, but we don't go back and make sure he spends it a certain way or oversee how he spends his funds. We appropriate money, he manages the sheriff department. And at the end of the day, if for some reason we had to do cuts because we didn't have enough money, like back in 2008 when they had that economic downturn, they had to lay off a couple hundred sheriff deputies because there just wasn't enough money. and the county had to cut back. But it was genuinely a financial decision that the county had to make, and that the sheriff had to work with them on. But the county can't say, well, they can't manage how the sheriff manages the money and how he delivers the service to the people. His job is to keep our communities safe, and he does everything he can to do that. I can give you an example of the Inspector General and the Sheriff. An example of my mind just went. I think I'm not feeling well tonight for some reason. But the Inspector General, trying to remember, there was a situation where the Inspector General, oh, I know, I was reading all the Inspector General reports. And in every single report, he made a suggestion that the sheriff should have hire a legislative review team that would they would review all the legislation that comes from the state, and every 3 years they would update their policies based on those updates with the legislature. And so I picked up the phone and I called the sheriff. And I said, what's up with that? He's suggesting it every time. Did you do that, or how does that work? Yeah, I didn't say it like that. I said it more respectful. I never talked to the sheriff like that. But I asked him, so I said, I need to know. He said, Sue, yeah, I mean, yes, the Inspector General makes suggestions on his opinions, but that doesn't mean that we necessarily, have to respond in that way. The reason we haven't done anything different is because we don't have, first of all, we don't have the budget to hire a team to review legislative updates. So what we do is when there's a new law that happens at the legislature, we do it in real time, and we just update our policies in real time right then and there whenever they change it. So it's working well for us. It's more cost effective. We don't have enough money in our budget to have people on the streets, let alone a team that just sits there and reviews legislative updates. So the point I'm making is the sheriff is in a position to have a better understanding of how his budget works and what his limitations are. And in theory and in practice, he does have a better understanding of his whole situation and how it works. The Inspector General is looking from the outside in, and that's a point of advantage because he's looking with fresh eyes, and he might come up with something the sheriff or the deputies hadn't thought of. The other point I want to make is that the Inspector General his job is to review policies and procedures that will make the department better. His job is not to review whether or not it was a lawful shot, whether or not it was a lawful shoot. That's the DA's job. There's only one person that's elected who answers to the people. That's their job, is to determine if it's the law or not. And so I think what happened with the Inspector General is there was a little bit of a blurring, and there was a little bit of a lack of clarity maybe on what he can do. In the situation that we had, the Inspector General actually released a report prior to the DA being done with their review, and in the DA's review, they hired a national expert on, it was use of force. They hired I'm not, sorry you guys, I'm struggling tonight, but they hired an expert on use of force who had some valuable information, and if he had waited until he released that report to include that in his report, it might have changed the way he did it. And also when he said he hadn't included the DA's determination, and then he said all of his opinions, which were very strong, much stronger than any of his other reports, he kind of gave people an impression that he was applying judgment to that shooting as like not being lawful. People kind of went with that assumption, and that's when it kind of, the sheriff was like, this is not fair to my deputies who haven't even been fully investigated yet, and they're facing a judge and jury of their peers on civil side without even knowing if this was a lawful shoot or not. So there was a lot that went on there that ended up having a blurring of, the sheriff wasn't sure if maybe the inspector general could make an unbiased, totally unbiased observation. And the inspector general is supposed to be unbiased. They don't work for the county, they don't work for us, the board of supervisors. They're an independent contractor, and they don't work for the sheriff. So they're looking in with a fresh eye.
I might suggest, did I mention I'm a retired inspector general for the Air Force?
No.
I didn't. That's
Do you feel I answered that accurately?
Well, I now have more information than I had before, but I would certainly encourage you to change the RFP, to change the title from Inspector General, because it gives an entirely erroneous impression as to what that role is. Call them a management consultant or something else, because they are not an Inspector General. There needs to be an accountability chain that provides the DA, for instance, with that fresh look when the sheriff's department is under investigation. But to have the sheriff only accountable to me as a voter once every 4 years for something that they encourage or that they do, corruption or otherwise, is to be renegade, that is to say rogue potentially, with no oversight.
The Inspector General also does other things. They respond to community concerns. They connect, they work with the community to follow up on those concerns. They act as a liaison between the sheriff and the community in that way. The DA's function is not reliant upon the Inspector General at all.
Right.
Their job is to determine the law. And that has nothing to do with the Inspector General, and so they don't need the Inspector General's opinion. What they need is experts in specific fields to help them determine if that was lawful or not lawful. That's all they want to know. So I'm getting the hook over here, a strong hook. Can you see him, you guys? Yeah. It's like embarrassing. Okay, it's 7:15. I'm going to close this meeting, and thank you all very much for coming. He's struggling tonight.